There is no Oromo DNA, there is no Amhara DNA, or there is no any Tigray DNA. There is human DNA.
I mean,
And next to that, there is individual identity. Mainly, the youth group have been manipulated by these ethnic nationalists. But what I learned from my experience is, as long as the dialogue is open in universities, high schools, in different civic societies, in governmental institutions, for sure, ethnic ruling system will be diminished.
Okay, it took 50 years for Ethiopians to kill each other now. So do I have to wait another 50 years to come out of?
If you come to Ethiopia, ethnicity or ethnic ruling system has been introduced to high schools, universities. Even students in universities or high schools, they have been divided according to language grouping or ethnocentric system.
We adopted an absolute truth that socialism was a solution to our problem, and then we went, and then the son killed his father, because of class differences. Brother killed brother because of different anarchists, leftists, rightists, and so on. We went through that crisis because socialism endorsed that a country can only be. I mean, Marx said, nothing great has been achieved without violence.
Government should really reconsider the constitution, which was really established by TPLF. So this divide rule-based constitution should be rewrite as citizen-based constitution. Okay. Because this ethnic-based ruling is basically came from the colonialists. Ethno-nationalists are entrepreneurs. They just create job for them at the expense of killings of innocent people, displacing innocent people, frustrating innocent people, hatred innocent people.
Okay, so we have like 86 ethnic groups in Cartesian, and then we all now have different colors, different clothes, different kind of things which are invented as a modern day.
Yeah.
But you don't see no one of the ethnocentrics or the leader of this group celebrating their own clothes.
Yeah.
I don't see people dressed in like
that is the funny part.
Clothes.
So it's good to critically think what ethnicity is. Is it really scientific or delusion? When it is scientific, is knowledge, appropriate knowledge, which improves the quality of life of countries or people. Whereas when it's delusion, always it has got a negative effect on the lifestyle of the people.
Dear listeners and viewers, this is Search TV broadcasting to you from Ethiopia. Search TV brings to our dear audience news, hard talks, dialogues using scientifically researched books and articles. So please subscribe and like us to get instant access to our uniquely crafted information hub. Thank you in advance. Search TV is yours. Search TV, Scientific Information Center.
Thank you, Sabsavi, for coming for our discussion. I mean, this is going to be our first discussion in English. So this is like a trial time to to help everybody understand. Particularly Ethiopians living in abroad. They have to be able to part of the discussion. So all our discussion have been in Amharic. So now this is like a trial, discussion. So thank you for coming. We're going to have a very interesting discussion.
Thank you for having me.
So, I mean, I know you have written a book on identity. You have a claim that, identity is some kind of delusion, a collective delusion. So we'll get back to it and then to detail to discuss all these points. But now, to begin with, please introduce yourself a bit, and then we will go to the discussion.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Sabsibe Alamnakh. Professionally, I'm hydrogeologist. I'm working in a private firm.
Okay.
Of course, I have written a book called Nation's Identity Delusion, and that has been written some 2 or 3 years back. And then I'm also dealing with this kind of chronic problem in Ethiopia.
So, I mean, yeah, so I know, a lot of people think, since the last 47 years, the introduction of, the leftist school of thought in Ethiopia, like Stalinist, nationality question, Ethiopians had been, this was perceived to be solved the Ethiopian problem. But now we're seeing it's creating even more problem, ethnic identity in the political organization based on identity. So, what do you think of that?
Yeah, that is a basic problem, what you are telling me. This Stalinist definition of ethnic identity introduced to Ethiopia maybe some
47 years.
47 years. And that was actually, this definition was not reviewed by peer, or not peer reviewed or scientifically approved definition. They just define it and collectively, driven to Ethiopia in the communist regime, the Derg regime, and that again by EPR, what you call it, Ethiopian People Revolutionary Party, that was actually supported this definition, as well as by TPLF, and they were struggling for freedom of ethnic groups in Ethiopia, considering the Tigray people as one ethnic group and other 84, 85 ethnic groups. So just as a freedom fighter, TPLF was acting since the last 47 years, and still the motion is active.
Yeah. So now we're seeing a lot of ethnic-based, attacks, cleansings, conflicts. So what do you suggest to come out of this issue? I know you have discussed it in your book, in detail. Yeah. So what exactly are you coming up with?
Yeah, everybody knows. The people of Ethiopia, has experienced the outcome of this ethnic-based, the so-called politics, which I don't say politics. It's a ruling, rather. So the outcome has really made the people of Ethiopia to suffer from displacement, several killings, frustrations, hatred, all this kind of negative effects have been occurred in Ethiopia, and the people of Ethiopia entirely has experienced the negative effect of ethnic-based ruling. So it's good to critically think what ethnicity is. Is it really scientific or delusion? When it is scientific, is knowledge, appropriate knowledge, which improves the quality of life of countries or people. Whereas when it's delusion, always it has got a negative effect on the lifestyle of the people. So I was really critically thinking about, really, is ethnicity, is it scientific thought or notion, or is it delusional? That was the basic question I have been asking before I write my book. But eventually I came up with a conclusion that ethnic-based is not political science, but rather it is delusional. Delusion comes, or is the outcome of ignorance, lack of data, lack of critical thinking. So I had really experienced the discrimination of ethnic-based ruling in Ethiopia. I was discriminated by the ruling class. So I had a felt need to really study or research, who am I? Who am I was my question, actually. Am I really Amhara, or am I Tigray, or am I Oromo, or what really meant by this Oromo, Amhara, Tigray? Is it really identity? That was the basic question I had in the past 10 years, and I came up with a book called Nation's Identity is Delusion.
Yeah. Okay. So now there is a lot of people are talking about ethnic identity. And I mean, some of if we had this discussion, 30 years ago, probably we're discussing hypothetical case. A lot of people have been saying, embarking on ethnic identity in a political structure is going to end up in genocide, hatred, and then conflict. But the 1960 students, the Marxist Leninist students, they believed that was the Ethiopia's problem, the national question. And then as long as people, have their identity in a separate, territorial identity, I don't see it's like non-territorial identity. So if they had this one, Ethiopia will live happily ever after. Now that we have the empirical data, so everywhere you go, there is a first, class citizens and second class citizen in all over the problem. So how did we come about this one, or why people believe this is, if it's truly delusional things, how did they, come to this, position?
Yeah, they believed.
And then one more thing, do we like, some countries have learned from this experience, like Rwanda. They had emphasized on the division by the colonialists, and then finally, they woke up now to say, that was a disastrous, conclusion, of the division, so genocide. So you can include that one as also in your discussion.
Yeah, basically delusion is dangerously deceptive idea. So in Ethiopia, there are 86, 87 language groups or societies. People they think we have culture. These different groups, they think we have culture, style of life. They think that is their identity. They have language, what they spoke, what they are speaking. So they think that language belongs to them. They are the owner of the language. They have somehow not a solid boundary, but a kind of fluid boundary where these people are existing or living. So based on this, they think language, especially those nationalists, I mean, ethno-nationalists, they claim what the language they speak belongs to their own property. This is a delusion. No one can be the owner of a language. Language has no any owner. No one has got a patent right for any language. Language belongs to any humankind, to all humankind. This is deceptive. See? The other thing is they're based on culture. Humankind has no permanent or specific culture to any ethnic group. That the so-called culture is not their identity. Rather, it can be explained by their standard of living, reflected from their economic status. So, people, they say, I mean, the ethno-nationalists say, we have our distinct culture, but not, actually. That is their standard of living as an economic society, and on they have got their own economic, I mean, source.
You mean it's a reflection of their economic status?
Exactly.
If somebody is living in a round house or eating kocho because the land grows that's plants, and then people have the straw and then wood to make that kind of house.
Yes.
It's not because it's not their culture
Or their identity.
It's not
Their
their
standard.
identity.
That is called the standard of living.
Yeah. So when their standard of living change, the straw roof
Will be
be
changed to be corrugated iron roofed.
a roof, or
Or
the food will change.
concrete
and then all that
building
thing.
or whatever.
And then the clothes also change. So this is a dynamic process that people want to define themselves.
Yes, the nationalists, they define these our culture. So those who used to be, for example, walking on barefoot can have shoes, or those who are being bare body, they can have clothing. You see, those who have been, using donkeys or horses as means of transportation, they can change to bike or car or whatever, you see. So that cannot be identity. Identity is unchangeable, you see, wherever you go. So that is their economic reflection, state of economy. So each and every groups or language groups in Ethiopia are an economic society, not identity. Because, for example, if you come to Addis Ababa, Addis Ababa is composed of originally who came from different language groups. But when you come to Addis, those who used to live in different lifestyle has become homogenized, because people have got shoes, they use car for transportation. Even they put off suits, clothing like you and me, and people have got iPhone or any mobile phone, and they live in a better housing system. So
they don't say, this is my culture, I have to...
No. You cannot say, this is my cultural identity. No, at all. That's the delusion part. That's the deceptive idea that drives ethno-nationalists, you see. Okay. And that makes emotional people.
Okay, so...
Those who have no information about what the reality is.
Okay, so we have like 86 ethnic, groups in Cartesian, and then we all now have different colors, different clothes, different kind of things, which are invented as a modern day.
Yeah.
But you don't see no one of the ethnocentrics or the leader of this group, celebrating their own clothes.
Yeah.
I don't see people dressed in like
that's the funny part.
Clothes, or at least in the rest of the world, when they don't have this ethnic identity, in India or Nigeria, you see even the prime minister or the president, having his own national clothes. So why did it become so, people are, so stuck with this ethnic identity politics? Is it because it is like a entrepreneurship for politicians that they want to, profit out of this conflict?
Yeah. Right. That makes really, reasonable to say ethno-nationalists are entrepreneur. They just create job for them at the expense of killings of innocent people, displacing innocent people, frustrating innocent people, hatred innocent people. So, for example, if you see ethno-nationalist leaders, they have been living abroad in America, Europe, and they really are experiencing the best standard of living. They have their own car, they have a very nice house, they don't put on their original, ethnic, the so-called ethnic clothing or whatever you call it. So they are putting on suits, Western clothing style. However,
they claim that their culture is oppressed.
their culture is oppressed. You see, I don't know. Culture cannot be oppressed because culture doesn't exist according to my philosophy or reasoning. So people or humankind have got similar desire. They like improved health condition, improved access to schooling, improved clothing system, improved housing system, improved communication system. You see, all the entire global people, have got similar, need. You see, so there is no a separated identity, the so-called culture. This is nonsense, really, to think this way and to drive the innocent people to for suicide. I better say suicide, because suicidal commitment, because their mind is deceived or delusional. They think something unrealistic as realistic. So this is really the mess which is happening in Ethiopia, and even led Ethiopia for civil war. So it has to be made clear by scientific knowledge, or update the mind of the people of Ethiopia by scientific knowledge. So we have to really work on this issue.
Okay, so now we are where we are now. A lot of people have been told or indoctrinated or made to believe that they are different from each other.
Yeah.
In Ethiopia, probably 90% of the population is, it's got like religious kind of communities. We have either Christianity or Muslim, various denominations. And then if you are, even if you are not Creationist, you believe that, if these people believe in creation theory, that means, all human beings come from Adam, and there's no difference. And then even religious views in Christianity, if you see, there is no Greek, there is no slave, there is no, all are, kind of one and together.
Yeah.
On the other hand, on the secular societies, they have a lot of tolerance and a lot of acceptance of diversity of the people. People from all over the world, moved into America to create a strong nation, a prosperous nation. Whereas in this kind of society, we find a difference between two different, school of thought. On one hand, in believing in creation, people are the same in sort of thing. At the same time, we have this ethnocentric view of the world, which calls one group of people to kill another, group of people. So, how are we going to get out of this problem?
This is really can be overcome. By awareness raising. That would mean, as you told, as you spoke now, Ethiopian people are mostly religious people. Even in terms of religion, any religion like Muslim or Christianity, all humankind is the same. So even the ethno-nationalists, they are immoral. They are immoral. Why? They are diverted from even the religious point of view. When you see it from the scientific point of view, by evolution theory, it's Homo sapien. There is one species. You see? That's Homo sapien. Even there is no races. Genetic science doesn't accept races, but there is one human race, genetically the same. So there could be phenotype differences in humankind. One is color, in color differences, or physically with small eye, big eye, or short or long, white or black or whatever. Still then, all humankind is the same, genetically. So this kind of awareness should be, given to the people of Ethiopia, and that is mainly on the governmental issue. This is a really governmental issue because it is the government who brought this ethnic-based ruling system. So TPLF was ruling Ethiopia for the last 26, 27 years, and then this kind of system, ethnic-based ruling, divide and rule policy, was have been applied for the last 30 years, but now somehow changed. The government system is changed, and the new government should work on that. A free, dialogue must be made, like what we are doing like this, or government should really reconsider the constitution, which was really established by TPLF. So this divide rule based constitution should be rewrite as citizen based constitution. Okay. Because this ethnic based ruling is basically came from the colonialists. If you go back, so 1938, written by Roman Prochaska.
The power battle.
The power battle, exactly. That book mainly states that in order to dismantle Ethiopia, we have to divide them in ethnic, culture, language based division must be made. That is their tool, because that's emotional. That's also the intention of Egypt too. Why these, Westerners do not are not interested for the sovereignty of the Ethiopia? Because they want to manipulate Africa, Ethiopia, for their own economic benefit.
Yeah, but don't you think it's a product of educational system? Because a lot of people argue, like Dr. Masai, Dr. Takasta, Professor Takasta, and now Dr. Salomon, and sort of thing. We are a product of nature and nurture.
Yeah.
Our nature hasn't changed. People have been united to extent and defeating. This is like the longest, probably the only, independent, countries that survived. Probably 3,000, 4,000. Big civilization like Egypt, Greeks, Babylon, and all that gone down. or conquered by other peoples. This is what had made Ethiopia, as an independent country in probably in the world.
Yep.
So anyway, but the people that shows the internal unity of the country. When it would come to solving their problems or securing their independence. But now people are extremely hatred against each other. Everybody has got his next neighbor as enemy.
Yeah.
And then obviously if unless stopped, a lot of people fear, including myself, that this is going to lead to genocide in a conflict. Because there is no more a theoretical argument, it is practically there is empirical evidence that people are heading that way. So now we reached at this point now. So a lot of people now say, why did we end up here? Because of that misguided educational system, like Masai, Professor Takasta, and Salomon, and other people are talking about, we have to examine our educational system because we adopted an absolute truth that socialism was a solution to our problem. And then we went, and then, the son killed his father, because of class differences, brother killed brother because of, different anarchists, leftists, rightists, and so on, so on. We went through that, crisis because socialism endorsed that a country can only be, Marx said, nation, nothing great has been achieved without violence. So it just, the violence was a part of, the script, people were playing. And then there came ethnic politics. And then now the same, everybody was hoping that his neighbor is going to be eliminated or displaced so that he can have, happily ever after life. So what are we now, because this education system, in such a way the people are programmed to see their brother as enemies. So what do you suggest, we need to come, no, you said a dialogue. I'm glad you wrote a book on the issue, but what else also need to be done?
Yeah. You see, whenever there is a dictator governmental regime, it tries always to control all institutions, including schools, high schools, universities. All institutions should be controlled by this dictatorial government, and then always controls to manipulate universities in accordance with its politics. If you come to Ethiopia, ethnicity or ethnic ruling system has been introduced to high schools, universities. Even students in universities or high schools, they have been divided according to language grouping or ethnocentric system. They just group themselves. Those who speak Orominya, they group themselves. Those who speak or originally came from Amharic speaking places, they group themselves. And then Tigrinya speakers, they group themselves. You see, the problem is that social science and natural science has got a big discrepancy. Basically, social science is a software. Natural science is mainly hardware. You can take any hypothesis to a laboratory and you can examine it, test it. Empirically, you drop it or you consider it. Whereas this, social science is a software, it is mostly simply ideal. You put your view, whatever it benefits your interest or not, or the society you may think, and then you put simply rhetoric. You write. So this social science rhetoric will be tested in the life of people, whether it is negative or positive, the test tube is human himself.
Yeah, it's experiment.
Experiment, exactly. So that's what happened in Ethiopia. So universities even are being manipulated by the ruling government, the ethnic-based, constitution. So even when there is a research paper to be written, they really receive the conclusion first, and then they start to gather data so that to manipulate it to the conclusion. You see? So that was how universities really missed as a scientific center.
So technically what you're saying, we haven't created independent thinking intellectuals.
Exactly.
People who think by themselves, make a decision.
Yeah.
Rather than examining the evidence. I mean, the basis of science is skepticism. To just think about whether it's true or not. Anyway.
Yes.
So now we have dogmatic people who took every anthropologist theory or Marxist theory or any Stalin pamphlets as an absolute truth.
Yeah.
And then that they want to implement it in the society, and now the society is paying the price for that.
That is right.
Okay.
That's right.
But it's still okay. You mentioned that we have to have dialogue, discussions. I mean, this kind of things to, help people to question, their absolute truth is it's really is the truth.
Yeah.
So, of course, this one is the dialogue. You wrote a book.
Yeah.
What else to do? Because I mean, this kind of change does not come overnight.
Yeah.
The mind,
sure.
reprogramming the people's mind, the way they see themselves, they say their neighbors is going to take, because these things took like 40 some years,
Yeah.
probably, maybe 50 years since, because we celebrated, they were celebrating the article of Wallerling, 50 years ago. So Wallerling didn't write the article. He couldn't possibly write that article. I myself believe that he wasn't, but somebody has written the article to give it to him, and so that he used his name, to implement this kind of the national question issues in Ethiopia. So now, it took 50 years for Ethiopians to kill each other now. So do I have to wait another 50 years to come out of it? What is, the dialogue is, would it be fast enough to find a solution, or shall we go straight forward into, Rwanda's case, where people are now shocked, realize that was the wrong direction to come out of it?
You see, we do have empirical data as Ethiopians. One is we learn it from our own experience. Millions have been displaced. Several hundreds of thousands of people have been killed, innocent people. And still, the dynamic is existing. We have also, empirical data from Yugoslavia, from Rwanda, from Africa, Nigeria, from Germany. So, I believe the people of Ethiopia, as a religious and religious people, they don't really like this kind of ruling system, just from the moral point of view. Not even critical thinking is required. From the religious point of view, they don't like it. The second thing is mainly the youth group have been manipulated by these ethnic nationalists. But what I learned from my experience is, as long as the dialogue is open in universities, high schools, in different civic societies, in governmental institutions, for sure, ethnic ruling system will be diminished.
Of course, so but now, the benefits of ethnic system from the ruling class perspective is that there's no competition.
Yeah.
So one, I mean, there is a very good book by the Indian professor in America, Why Ethnic Political Parties Succeed. She put 4 criteria. One is, for ethnic political party to succeed, it has to create an enemy.
Yeah.
So us and them.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you have to put people in hostage scenario. If you don't follow me, that they will, come and kill you and sort of thing. So it's a fear factor, the first one. The second one is self-selecting. Nobody is elect his ethnic leader. A person will, elect himself, and then he will call that I'm the liberation, leader of my people.
My people. Yes.
And the third one is it doesn't allow competition.
Yeah.
It's a patriarch system. There's only one ethnic liberation front. You have seen it in Ethiopia. Before TPLF, there were 2 ethnic groups. And there was also in Eritrea, they have to fight each other to create one patriarch system. In Sri Lanka, also a number of Tamil tigers fought before, creating one Tamil tiger. So everywhere you go, it doesn't allow. It doesn't allow, alternative or the representation of that group by another person or another group. And the last one is it's what's called ethnic head count. Yeah. Which means, I have got all these people like, chicken, you count the people and then say, these are my people. So, because this way, the argument of that book is just to say that this is not going to take us to democracy. The ultimate is probably it will be patronage democracy. That means elect me my group or help me in a liberation struggle. When I control the power, I'll be, trickle down, the resource, the national resource to my group. Yeah. That kind of thing, which we have seen in Ethiopia already. So all these things are, I know it's delusion, but, again, coming back, don't you think people have, the daily dosage of delusion, Do you have to be rational, all people? Or what is the argument about it?
Yeah, at least government must be rational.
Okay.
Leadership must be rational.
Okay.
Government should not be led by delusional mental disorder. Okay. Because they have access to knowledge. They have access to books. They have access to think critically. Of course, the population of Ethiopia dominantly are farmers who didn't get access for school. Maybe 80-85% of Ethiopian farmers Ethiopian people are farmers. So as a government should learn to experience or from the global, leadership or global political system should learn. Even we don't need from others to learn from, because we have experienced the pro and con of ethnic ruling system, how it is dangerous for the existence of the country as well as the safeguard of the people of Ethiopia, or even individuals. Even as you told us, even you don't believe, your neighbor, for example. Even there was husband and wife, even cannot be trust one another because of their, ethnic mentality.
Ethnic,
yeah.
So it's interesting because I know people. There is an argument, a guy called Eric Hoffer, which says people only die for the things they don't understand. So if you believe, if they fully understand the things, they think that it's emerged from them, and then so they don't look it as an absolute truth. Yeah. So Ethiopian students believed in absolute, emancipation or absoluteness of the the communist Marxist doctrine. They killed each other. Now they are absolutely blindly following like religion, ethnic politics. So we're stuck in the situation. I mean, again, it took us 50 years to get where we are now.
Yeah.
But the government is not going to change its mind because it's making a profit out of it. If you have a constituency that only votes his own group, there is no democracy. It was called, patronage democracy. You don't have, you don't allow a competition with a new group. I mean, even we have seen it in election, in this part of the things. Even if the political system seems to be changing, in the one-party system, we have still a political parties based on an ethnic. Within the group, there are groups. Yeah. So, okay, we have these issues. Again, I haven't, so what do we do? Do you just educate people, have a discussion, or a panel, arts article, sort of thing to show the danger of these things?
Yeah. Dialogue must be created. I mean, all schools, especially the focus groups must be high schools, universities.
So change the curriculum or anything?
Yes, of course. There must be some revision on the curriculum. But in Ethiopia, parties also, the party organizational system must be changed too. The parties, we are experiencing, now recently multi-party system. The parties must establish themselves on scientific developmental policies.
So why do they have to change if they can make profit out of ethnic politics?
Of course, the people must...
Or should we ban it?
I agree with you. They don't change as long as they get benefit out of it. But the government must ban by law because it is unscientific.
Yeah, but the government also benefiting from that.
Of course, if the government is not willing to change itself or update itself, the people of Ethiopia must get the awareness through activism or through dialogue or through, different, access, getting access.
So it shouldn't be the responsibility of the government. If they not do it, we have to do it.
We have to do it. That's the point. The people of Ethiopia must do it. Must
because there is a big danger.
Yes.
And then they can't blame anyone if they just follow into the the end of the hill and come down tumbling.
Yeah, that's what happened. The last before 3 years, that's what happened. The ethnic-based ruler, TPLF, has been get rid of by the people. They didn't like it because it was one ethnic head ruling system in Ethiopia. So the people of Ethiopia was not interested by this. But still,
it wasn't removed by people who believe in Ethiopia. Honestly speaking, there is Gero, Fano, sort of. Why all of these are used? Why didn't have pan-Ethiopian kind of thing? If they were in fact united, they could have in fact make an impact. Because the unity will be the power.
Yeah.
So still, it is the same thing.
Yeah, still the hangover is still among the people, but still a lot of work must be done. As we discussed earlier, we have to go through, enormous discussions, dialogues, like what we are doing now. We have to get access to schools, universities, for awareness raising. But the problem still is if the government is not open-minded, as maybe if it still continues in ethnic-based politics or ruling, that will be the challenge to the people. But I don't think the current government, is not really reluctant. It's not reluctant.
Well, as long as it makes all the benefit, the government are there to control power. So if people are believe in ideal of building communism, people will die for that, and then the leadership will benefit out of it.
Yeah.
Ethnic politics also the same thing. So now again we keep, because I don't have an answer. Of course. So the Ethiopian problem started with education.
Yeah.
Miseducation, technically.
Education is a reflection of the government.
Yeah,
political
miseducation,
system.
one thing. There is already society which is heading to each other. Obviously, people believe they don't understand things. That's people do not die for the things they understand. They just only die, for if they don't. It has to be, abstract. It has to
Emotional.
be it in religion or political theories and sort of thing. So, still, we are in absolute terms. People talk about ethnic politics. We're heading over conflict. So, what do we need to do? Why? But on the other hand, those people who are not part of this, ethnic, why they are not organized? Why why there isn't Behera Ethiopia or a kind of group which is in the middle, which is seeing the problem? And
that's what I said before. If government is not willing, the people must be
ready
to combat. This chronic and barbaric mental system. So it's up to the people, and even those who there are a lot of elite groups who really critically think, and they don't believe in ethnicity. They believe in humanism, so or citizenship. So this kind of elite group must come together and work together and struggle.
Create a system where people all live together and then equal and then respected and then sort of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So anyway, I think the issue is, just to put on your point, there's no even, nobody has even properly defined, let alone a group identity, individual identity.
Yeah.
They was this what's called the body theory. People believed, our body is our identity, sort of, but our body change. It's 75 trillion cells change every, from 50 to 75 trillion cells change every day. I'm not the same Yared when I was 2 years old, 10 years old, 50 years old, or 20 years old. So we change. So even there is a legal argument that whether we have to honor our vow or whether we have to, legal obligation because our body is changing. So, nobody can tell, from a picture that this is the Yared, from things. So there is, and then like John Locke came to explain the situation based off memory, what's called the memory theory. We only know it's me because I just have to remember when I wake up in the morning. I have to remember that I went to that bed in the evening. So that's the chain of memories, but the memory it just break because the first 3 years you don't remember. At a certain age you don't remember yourself. So would your identity end up to become an existence? And then there are also other people who Homo narrates, kind of theory, storytelling man. Like Homo sapiens, this is our story. We are a bunch of box where people put ideas, Yared with glass and sort of thing, the situation. And then that box is changing, a junk box, every time, if I get laser surgery and then put my glass, Yared is no more going to be with glass, Yared. So, the thin Yared will become thin, sort of thing, So this all things are, it's just undefined concept.
Yeah.
Nobody even say it's me.
You can go to the level to the extent of that.
And also when you go to group things, even the race theory, there is a good book written by an English guy, Anthony. He's a philosopher. So the book title is The Lies That Bind. The lies bind. Culture, ethnic identity, and sort of the people, because there is no boundary between human race.
Yeah.
You go start from black, light shade, Arabs, and then sort of thing. Even phenotypical, there is no, there's no white, there's no black, there's no box. There's old. What about the mixed race people? What kind of ethnic group is going to be? Americans have gone through difficult time to define. Like John Crow definition of what's a black person. They call a drop of blood, black blood makes him a person. So in different states, they have, 1/8, 1/16, grandparents, black race and sort of thing. Nobody has managed to define what a blackness. Why Obama has to be black. Because that's John Crow definition. Why didn't have a choice to be white? So all these things. So we are in a difficult situation.
Yeah.
Stuck in this trap.
Yeah.
I know you wrote a very good argument book.
Yeah.
But how far people have read it? All the distribution and.
I hope so. Some 2,500 books have been distributed in Ethiopia. Maybe some abroad. Few rather.
Okay.
Few abroad. Just to highlight, especially in identity politics, especially in my book, I have written what identity is, just to supplement from your, idea. Humankind is
one. Yeah. So
among
even in
human
religion or in
whatever
science. So
in religion, in Christianism, and in evolution theory, it's one, Homo sapien. In terms, you see, as I told you earlier, social science is not really
so public, some consensus, like people.
Yeah.
If anthropologists come and write the people, other people will, quote that things, and and then it will become an absolute. I don't believe now semantic cushitic sort of theories, for example.
Yeah.
Those people have, may have, theories, but whether same or cushy, they come from one parent, No. Anyway.
Yeah,
so
they define the identities. They define the identity in terms of just culture and language and other things. They don't see in terms of natural science. Because they have not the capacity to that, critical thinking. They see their just environment, superficially they see. But when it comes to the natural science or on a biology or a genotype, it's a completely different view from the social science perspective. So, identity is just identity. No one can be similar to that body. For example, I don't know what your background is. Maybe let me come in terms of chemistry. Hydrogen is an identity. Oxygen is an identity.
When you mix two, you get water.
When you mix them, you get water. But
so a human being
hydrogen cannot be oxygen. Oxygen cannot be hydrogen. Wherever you take it to the space, if hydrogen is hydrogen. So identity should be expressed in terms of this. For example, humankind is one, but identity is individual.
Yeah, even the identity is not properly defined. Who is subsidy? Are you the same person who was 6 years old?
Yeah, for example, let's make it this way.
Yeah.
Each and every person has got its own identity, but in biological term, that is its own
0.1%. Yeah.
DNA. For example, your DNA is different from my DNA in terms of subsidy, and in terms of that is like an ID. An ID. Subsidy cannot be Yared cannot be subsidy. So we have a chemical or a chemistry that identifies.
What I mean in the short is there is no DNA for group.
There is no Oromo DNA, there is no Amhara DNA, or there is no any Tigray DNA. There is human DNA. And next to that, there is individual identity.
Okay, yeah. So 99% of our DNA is the same. So there is a minor difference is between the people. So that's it. So I think you can round it up. If you want to say a couple of things, in terms of advice and all other things, and then.
Yeah, I
Well,
just want to say a few things as a conclusion. We all humankind are the same. We have the same desire, needs. We need improved quality of life. So our government should wind up its mind as a leader of Ethiopian citizen, considering the people of Ethiopia needs improved standard of living. Parties should establish themselves to improve the quality of the people. They should compete based on that scientific policies.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, our audience, for this meeting. I mean, I share. By the way, my interview wasn't like confronting your points, because I share the same view as you already know. So, the end of the message is, let's not be, what I mean. I don't know how to put it politely. This ethnic politics is totally, it's no scientific basis. It has no economical benefit, because the civilization is the product of cooperative communal cooperation. So we have been exploited by ethnocentric politicians who want to, without competition, elect themselves and then represent for life.
Yeah.
And then if they pass, they will pass the power to their kids, and so this is an issue. We believe all the things which we don't understand. Stalin didn't encourage ethnocentric Stalinism, because the Ethiopian students, they have never read these books, whether in Germany or English. He just, in fact, he wrote these pamphlets to condemn an ethnocentric view of things, because of the Otto Bauer writing. We believe the things we don't understand.
Yeah.
So Ethiopians has to become very skeptical of everything. The basis of science, rationality, skepticism is very important. If somebody says, you are ethnic group, why that? What makes it different? And so on. So we have to come up, because there is a big danger. This difference is going to lead us to very, bad outcome. I don't know how to put it. Just a situation like in Rwanda. So it's already, people are, programmed to hate each other, and then we have to come out of this problem. And then, thank you, Sabsabe. This is our
Just
first,
to give a few, just one remark. That's what happened in Ethiopia. As soon as the TPLF invaded Ethiopia, they just distributed identity card, Amara, Oromo, Tigray, Sidamo.
So shall we repeat off?
Yeah. So we repeated the same, situation in Rwanda. That is a preparation for genocide, for its future plan.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sabsabe, for this discussion. I will continue anyway on this topic.
Thank
so you have to find his book and read his book, and then ask yourself whether this is something worth dying for. Thank you very much.
Thank you for hosting me.
Okay.
Dear listeners and viewers, this is Search TV broadcasting to you from Ethiopia. Search TV brings to our dear audience news, hard talks, dialogues using scientifically researched books and articles. So please subscribe and like us to get instant access to our uniquely crafted information hub. Thank you in advance. Search TV is yours. Search TV, Scientific Information Center.